Hi, Heather here from Creative Kiwi. Put together this video showing how we make this Best Ever Hearts gift set, which was a set that really grew. I started off with wanting to make something for a little girl to give to her mum or dad, obviously, on Valentine's Day, and then it really grew. So got the 20 plus different heart designs, plus the wee bag as shown here, which would be lovely not only for this idea, but also just as a cute little bag. So with the hearts, you can make like a hanger. We've got there a coaster for your hubby. They're the 5x7 size. We've just got little ones there, nanny, daughter, one for the uncle. Now I just stitched that out on fake leather, and then a key ring. So it's fairly versatile set that you could use, obviously not just for Valentine's Day, but for any time you want to add something handmade to a gift set or about. Now, just before we get into the actual design, there's a real time saver here. The bag front is made in one hooping and then you join it on the back. Now, what you can do is stitch your 4x4 heart and the bag front in a 5x7 hoop, and the same vice versa with the 5x5 heart and the 6x10 bag. Now, I haven't got the files done like that, just the sheer number of files. So what you can do is just at your machine or in your software, put the heart up to the top end of the hoop and put the bag file down to the bottom end of the hoop. And that way you can just save time by stitching them both in the one hooping. My video does show them separate just for in case people are wanting to stitch just the design. Now I'm going to start with the bag file first, and as with both the hearts and the bag, you need to stitch it on 2 layers of the fabric type water-soluble stabilizer, and you do want to pin your stabilizer at the edges. It really does make a difference. So let's get going at the machine. So the first step is just going to stitch the bag front or the pocket outline onto your stabilizer. You're going to add a piece of batting. I use a thin polyester batting, and the next colour attaches it. Now, when can you leave batting out? Obviously, if you're using a very thick, dense fabric or felt, you could leave the step out and just use the step ahead to the next colour. Here you can see I'm just trimming away that excess batting, and there are gaps there at the sides, and we do that on purpose so that we can keep the batting out of the seams. Now for this design, you're going to stitch the back and the front at the same time. So you can tape your fabric onto the back of the hoop, or I show you how I do it at the machine. But basically you have your backing fabric wrong side facing the hoop, and see I just float it here. See, because I can see that my fabric is completely covering. You do need to have your machine threaded with the colour you want for the quilting, so a neutral colour. I've just used white. And the next step's just going to attach those fabrics and stitch just the plain line quilting. I have included a decorative red work stitch that you can choose to stitch if you like. It's hard to see in the video. I did use it on the sample. I didn't on the satin stitch sample. Your choice. Now, I forgot to press play on the video, but basically you're just going to cut away the fabric from the top end only of that design on the front and the back of the hoop. And then back to the machine, which is just going to zigzag those raw edges and do the decorative envelope stitch. And that's the front completed, so it's very quick to do. Now we're just going to trim away that excess stabilizer. You can trim it as close as possible to the satin stitches because that top's completed. For the sides and the bottom, I just cut it with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You'll see why when we do the joining on the back. So now we're on to the next step, or the last hooping, and again we've got 2 layers of fabric type water soluble stabilizer, and we've just stitched the outline. Now if you wanted to add a tassel, you add it all now before we do the batting. If you're going to use the tassel as like a button closure, make sure you have enough room or enough gap. I did this and I didn't make the ribbon long enough and no buttons would fit. So anyway, just something, a trick just to remember. The next step is just to place your batting over those guidelines, and it's just going to stitch in 2 pieces. And again, this is just to keep bulk out of the fold of the bag. This makes it fold easier. And it stitches around twice just so you've got a nice cutting edge. And then we're back, pretty self-explanatory. We're going to cut away that batting. Now the next step is to put your lining or back fabric on the back of the hoop, and that does show when you open the bag. So you want to have the right side showing upwards on the back of the hoop. Again, you could tape it, or I show how I do it with the machine. So there you go. I've got my lining fabric. I'm going to flip it over so the wrong side of the fabric is up against the hoop, and I'm just going to float that under my machine because I can see where the fabric is and I can see that it covers completely. Then we're going to add our front fabric. Again, have your machine threaded with the neutral colour because it's going to attach the fabric and just do some line quilting. You can see there is a placement line there for a heart. Now on the white satin one, I just used the one fabric, so I skipped the stitch. But if you want to put the contrast fabric heart there, just tape your fabric on the back of the hoop. It would be right side up again because this is what you're going to see when you open the bag. And then you're just going to put the fabric on the front and attach. We're just going to cut away that excess heart fabric. Now the next step is going to be placing your already made pocket on the back of the hoop. Now we've done this so that all your nice stitching shows on the front, so we need to attach the pocket on the back. Now I've got guidelines on both the stabilizer, also on the bag, on the pocket fabric itself. You can either just visually align, or as you can see here, I get a pin right there in that guideline and I put it to the guideline on the actual back, and then again just making sure that it lines up, and then you just need to tape in place. This is where I do use tape on the back of the hoop. I try not to go to stitch over the tape, so I stitch outside the stitch lines. You can put tape wherever. Now then we're just back to the machine and we're going to attach that pocket, which just stitches right around the entire design. Gives you another crisp cutting line. Make sure it looks kind of lined up. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but you do want to have it fairly correct on the back there. And then you're just going to cut away all the excess. If you've got a tassel, make sure you don't cut off the tassel. Ask me how I know. So the first stitch here is just a zigzag stitch. So you just, again, just a neutral thread. I've got white thread in the bobbin and in the top. And then we're going to stitch the edge of the bag. So I've used white, so I carry on with my white bobbins, but you can change if you need to. So that's just going to do the lovely satin stitch edge. And then I just changed the bobbin thread and thread colour on the top for the heart. And again, for the satin one, I just used white thread throughout. So really quick. The bags are really quick to make. So there you go, all done. So you just need to cut round to cut the excess stabilizer off. And there we go. We have the wee bag. Now that one's got the tassel. That one's without the tassel. And there you can pop the 4x4 heart fits the 5x7. There's showing you how sizing. And the 5x7 heart fits the 6x10 bag. Now you just need to remove your water soluble stabilizer using hot water and a Q-tip around the edges. Or to remove it completely, you can pop them in the wash. That will get rid of all stabilizer. Is that not cute? Now it's just ready for the closures. Now I pop them under something. That's what I was trying to show there. I pop them under something heavy, which helps keep the flap down. Now, if you don't want a closure, you could do what I showed there. See, just fold the flap in. Otherwise, I've actually used Velcro dots there on the satin stitch one. I just didn't want to have the cam snap showing. I also did it on this one because I hadn't left a big enough gap. Or a button to be sewn with the tassel. It just wasn't large enough, so I just used the Velcro there. And I think on the other bag, if I show it, I just used a cam snap. There you go. Next, I'm just going to do a quick show you how we create hearts. Very, very simple. Again, you use 2 layers of the fabric type water soluble stabilizer, and you can see I use my scraps. Look how wrinkly they look. Either way, 2 layers in your hoop and pin at the sides. Similar to the bag, the first stitch we use is just a placement line onto the stabilizer. Add your batting. Again, if you're using felt or maybe a fake leather, you could skip the batting step. Just depends on how bulky, how your machine likes bulk. But if you do use batting, simply cut away the excess. Place your fabric over the top. Read your machine with the colour you want for quilting because it's going to attach the heart fabric and do a quilting stitch on the design, which is little hearts. Now I've created the inner design with lots of different colours. That way you can add pieces or skip pieces as you prefer. But basically we've got the best ever wording and then there's some hearts and stars. And you can choose which you stitch and which you don't. And once you've done that, you're just going to put the back. I'm floating it underneath the hoop. Right side would be facing towards the machine, and then you're just going to attach the backing. Now, if you did do this on felt as I've done there, you could actually just finish the design at that point. Okay, you don't need the satin stitch. This one, I'm still doing the satin stitch, so I'm cutting away the excess fabric on the front and back of the hoop. So yeah, if you're using a non-frame material, you could just use pinking shears at this stage and be finished. So here we go, we're back at the machine and it's going to do a zigzag and then just a satin stitch edge. So you do need to have matching bobbin thread. That's it. That's how quick the hearts are. And obviously you can add tassels or a key ring. You can add the key ring clip. I'll show that in the instructions, written instructions. There you go. That's how fast it is to make a little heart. And hopefully you can use them for lots of different things. They can just be coasters, hangers, just little tags to put into with a gift, or key rings. Pretty much whatever you want to make, you can make with them. So thanks for watching and make sure you join our Facebook group and share what you make. Thank you.